The Bank of England's newest announcement, literally hours ago, confirms that governments and banks from all around the world are coming after your savings much quicker than you might think. Now, I know that might sound crazy, but literally hours ago, while 3 million people were on the streets in Britain, we can see Britain's face a 20,000 digital pound cap under a Bank of England plan. So what is this digital pound cap? Why is everybody talking about this? And why is it being introduced now while everybody around the world seems to be distracted? Will the Bank of England's 41-page white paper that they titled Executing a Bail-in be used to keep that £10,000 cap on savings accounts? I'm not sure, but we have a little bit of a deep rabbit hole to dive down today, because it's not just the UK coming out literally hours ago talking about this savings cap. We also have Thailand citizens are waking up to frozen bank accounts. Believe it or not, literally overnight, we can see that 3 million bank accounts have been frozen in Thailand, with daily transfer limits of 50,000 to 200,000 Taiwanese baht. Okay, so this is huge. This isn't just a European or a Western thing. We need to start breaking down this new Bank of England digital money cap that I think is the most horrifying thing I've ever seen since I've been following this news of central bank digital currencies being rolled out all around the world. So let's read this straight from the horse's mouth. We can see we propose a limit of between £10,000 and £20,000 per individual as the appropriate balance between managing risks and supporting wide usability of the digital pound. Bit strange. A limit of £10,000 would mean that 3/4 of people could receive their pay in digital pounds, as well as holding pre-existing balances in the same account, while a £20,000 limit would allow almost everyone to use digital pounds for day-to-day transactions. So this was said by a Bank of England employee. And everybody's talking about this right now because all of a sudden the world seems to be waking up to the fact that things aren't right. Now, again, I'm going to be really careful with how I frame this, but we always warn you on this channel that a really good bureaucrat or a tyrannical government will never let a crisis go to waste. And I find it awfully suspicious that while we have the biggest, let's call this a peaceful protest and showing of democracy in Britain with 3 million people on the streets, we now have the Bank of England coming out talking about savings caps. Let's read a little bit more about this in a different article. Crypto groups hit out at the Bank of England plan to limit stablecoin ownership. Again, just think about how wild that is, that they can limit the ownership of stablecoins. Now, again, this is brand new news. Have a look at this. 10 hours ago, this was published. Bank of England stablecoin limits slammed by UK crypto groups. So this is horrifying. This is incredibly Orwellian. You can see this is the £10,000 to £20,000 limit that we just keep seeing repeated in all of these papers and reports I've found. Now, again, caveat, I haven't read the entire report that the Bank of England has published on this, because as you're about to see, this thing is literally hundreds of pages, hundreds. But what's really interesting is that I found the devil in the detail. I found hidden within this very own report the really horrifying language. As you can see here, the bank considers it likely that limits on stablecoins used in systemic payment systems would be needed to manage financial stability risks by constraining the degree to which deposits could flow out of the banking system. The bank recently consulted on an individual holding limits of digital pounds between 10,000 and 20,000 pounds and sought views on a lower limit, such as 5,000 pounds. So this is directly from the Bank of England's very own website. Have a look at the top left-hand corner of the screen that I'm sharing right now. And doesn't this sound awfully suspicious and similar to what the European Central Bank is talking about? Again, I'll remind you guys, there is now an urgent need to channel retail savings into EU capital markets. Now it's not just the EU, now it's the Bank of England publishing mammoth reports on this topic and even suggesting a £5,000 limit. And I will remind you, why are they talking about digital pounds and CBDCs? And where do I think all of these things are starting to coalesce here? Well, we can see there's a reason why I believe Europe and the Bank of England is talking about central bank digital currencies, because they're going to use it in the exact same way that China uses theirs. Have a look at this. We all know that China has expiration dates on their central bank digital currencies. And I've got a lot more to dive into when it comes to what is happening in the UK right now and what is the signal and what is the noise, because these savings caps, some people are trying to say, look, but this is just applying to stable coins. But you just saw the language on the Bank of England's very own website. They said digital pounds. They were very clear about this. They're not talking about US dollar stablecoins. They're using that as the masquerade, so to say. They're using that as the wrapping paper. But in reality, they're talking about digital money, digital pounds, which is why I think it's only a matter of time that we start to see some more of these tests rolled out across Europe, like we saw in Thailand literally hours ago, when 3 million people had their bank accounts frozen. You can see the headline. Let's break down a little bit more about what's happening in Thailand, and then we're going to come back to Europe and the Bank of England at the end of today's video, because I think there's some more rabbit holes we can dive into, especially when we start talking about CBDCs, because let's not forget, the former English Prime Minister, he was a fan of CBDCs, wasn't he?
Digital currencies could be a digital version of money, a bit like a digital banknote.
A digital banknote. Don't you think that is interesting? We're going to be talking a little bit more about what the former leadership of the UK might suggest is coming under the current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. It's just I need to be careful with what I say. Keir Starmer. But let's break down what happened in Thailand before we come back to there. So you can see it, innocent people and businesses have reportedly been caught up in the crossfire as Thai banks froze millions of accounts suspected to be mules for scammers over the weekend. A nationwide crackdown in August began, and reports are that 3 million people right now have been affected. They've had their bank accounts frozen. They've woken up to bank accounts being frozen. Oh, but don't worry, because we urge the public not to panic. Here's the kicker. The suspension is only temporary and will be lifted once checks confirm no wrongdoing. Oh, hang on. What kind of checks are going to be checked here? Are they going to check your political views? I don't know. I mean, let's be frank. Probabilistically, they're probably just checking for scammers. Occam's razor response here. But I think the insanity of this just proves, why do you have any money in a bank? Why do you trust these people? You just wake up one day and, oh, sorry, your bank account's frozen because of some scammers. Now you have to wait 6 hours, 6 days, maybe 6 weeks, or even 6 months to get your money back. We have to check that you're not doing illegal things or saying illegal things or even just saying hurtful things online. Because if you say that in the UK, you're locked up. I know that sounds crazy, but 12,000 people in the UK every month are being arrested for social media posts. That's fact. That's not a conspiracy theory. So what is happening in Thailand? Well, don't worry. The suspension is only temporary. Haven't we heard that before? It is only temporary. What's the saying? There is nothing more permanent than a temporary government measure. To highlight my point, let's listen to one of the most consequential temporary measures in economics.
Secretary Connolly to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
So that's President Nixon of America in 1971, temporarily suspending the US dollar's peg to gold. And what happened to that temporary measure? Oh, hang on a minute. What is it? 2025? 54 years later, we still don't have a peg to gold. So again, this is why I'm telling you, never, ever, ever trust the government. Why are we trusting these people? They're proven to lie time and time and time again. And if I were one of the 3 million people in Thailand, I know what I'd be doing. I'd be doing what the subheading of this article, that again was published 10 hours ago, said. Thailand throws 3 million bank accounts, ensnaring users and prompting debate over whether Bitcoin offers a safer alternative. I don't think it's a debate. I don't think anybody's ever frozen a Bitcoin account. If you hold your own Bitcoin, they can't do anything. Which is, again, why I always tell you on this channel, if you don't hold your own Bitcoin and if you do not have one of these, which is a Bitcoin hardware wallet where you hold your own money and your own savings, where you have sovereignty over it, you do not own your own money. You are subject to a bureaucrat or a government doing exactly what Thailand's government just did. So again, I always encourage you guys, go put your Bitcoin into your own self-custody. If you do want to get your hands on some hardware wallets, I love Ledger and Trezor. Ledger's going to give you $10 of free Bitcoin if you use the link down below in the description. And if you do want to grab yourself a Trezor, which is again another very easy, beginner-friendly hardware wallet that I endorse, you can also get a 5% discount if you use a promo code Luke. And again, I mean, Trezor is also running a massive promotion on the Trezor Model 1 and Trezor Model T, which are 50% off right now. Massive discounts. Take advantage of these while they last. So you can see the Trezor Model T used to be 129 euros. Now you can get it for 64 big ones. Absolute no-brainer to get your Bitcoin custody sorted as soon as possible if you've been putting it off. Because again, I think these two massive announcements we're breaking down today only proves and only highlights that your time is potentially running out to actually put your own money into your own custody. Again, we've been following what the Bank of England has been doing here for a little while. Let's break it down a little bit further and have a look at where this connection to digital IDs might come in, because this is where things get a little bit interesting. This is where, I need to be careful what I say, but let's just say this is where the dots begin to start connecting and everything starts to make a little bit more sense when you layer in some of the other things that our Western governments are also looking to push through. Okay, this is very, very interesting. Now, what's strange about this talk about the UK creating savings limits is we haven't even seen this in China yet. Don't you think that's strange? Well, let's have a look at this article. I want to read this a little bit here. Earlier in the month, Christine Lagarde, president of the ECB, called for policymakers to address gaps in stablecoin regulation. Among other remarks, she sounded the alarm that US stablecoin policies could potentially result not just in further losses of fees and data, but also in euro deposits being moved to the US. Wow. Don't you think that's interesting? They want to stop capital flow out of Europe into the US. How did China do that? Capital controls and complete control over the internet. I don't think it's a coincidence that we now have the Bank of England looking to embark on a plan to seize people's money and now introduce savings caps. This is only the beginning of where I think this plan is going to run. This is only going to accelerate from here. We are in an acceleration. You can see everybody talking about this morning. Look at this, September 15th. Crypto firms want the UK to relax stablecoin ownership caps. Like we showed you, this isn't just stablecoin caps. This is digital pound caps. That's directly from the mouth of the Bank of England. This is kind of crazy. This is kind of insane that we're now starting to see this. Oh, but don't worry. The central bank has said its proposed ownership limits could be transitional as the financial system adjusts to the growth of stablecoins. There's that magic language again. Don't worry. This is just transitional, temporary. There is nothing as permanent as a transitional government policy. I think it's as clear as day. These people hate you. Can I even say that? These people do not want you to hold your own money. Now, again, look at this, the digital pounds and the payments landscape. Progress update, it's coming to England. Again, well, I'm only showing you information directly from the Bank of England's very own website. This, I think, is a landmark decision. I think this only proves that we're about to see a scramble like none other to implement central bank digital currencies worldwide. And now this is where I'm going to pop the conspiratorial cap on. This is where I think I'm going to be careful what I say. But there was an article here asking how we're going to be enforcing this. Have a look at this. This is where things get scary. Stablecoin issuers don't have sight of who holds their tokens at any given time. So enforcing caps would require a costly, complex new system, such as digital IDs or constant coordination between wallets. Oh, would you look at that? Digital IDs. Isn't that just a conspiracy theory? Surely we're never going to see digital IDs. That's just something that the right-wing conspiracy theorists talk about, right? There couldn't be a plan to push through digital IDs, could there? That would nearly be a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. I was looking for my tinfoil hat. I don't have it. Apologies. I was going to pop it on for Brandon. But again, let's have a look at this. Because I always tell you, I'm not just reading news headlines here. We're trying to piece together some dots. So we have this new news about this holding limit, a savings limit on how much money you can hold in the UK. And they're saying, oh, it's so tough to implement in practice. If only we had a new system like digital IDs to make it easier to track who owns what. Well, have a look at this. My boy Francis alerted me to this headline I'm about to pull up that I think is awfully interesting. Keir Starmer is now considering a digital ID scheme to track illegals. Huh. Look at the date of that. The 4th of September, 2025. Don't you think that's just a little bit of an interesting coincidence? Wait on a minute. Wasn't the UK open borders? Weren't they the country for all? The progressive country of the UK. Wait on a minute. I thought we were open borders. We were welcoming. What's changed? Well, we know, again, be careful with what I say here. So we know that right now there's 3 million people in the streets in the UK. That's just fact. The people in the UK are protesting for the love of their country. They love their country. They just want stricter controls of who enters. That's it. It's not controversial to say that. But again, wait on a minute. So that's the reaction. The reaction in the country. People are protesting. People are demanding a change to the problem that was created by the government in the first place. Because the UK government was, for the past decade, let's just say they open policy. They let a lot of people in to the country. They had very loose controls over who could visit the country and stay in the country. It's not controversial to say that. So they create the problem. They wait for the reaction, and then they serve up on a golden platter their pre-planned and pre-packaged solution. Digital IDs. Don't you just love how you see that happen? Huh, that's interesting. Problem, reaction, solution. That's what they're doing over there in the UK. Oh, don't worry. We have a solution to the problem. Sometimes you've just really got to ask yourself, how much of all of this is planned? Let's read this article from the BBC. This isn't a right-wing conspiracy theorist AlexJones.com article. Oh, no. Sir Keir Starmer has confirmed for the first time the government is looking at digital ID as a way to tackle immigration. The Prime Minister said a new identity program could play an important part in reducing the incentive to enter the UK without permission. Boy, don't you think this is just hypocrisy? Who's been paying attention? How quickly do they think we forget things? I want to bring up something. Just fact-checking myself before I say something too wild. I'm just going to read headlines here. So in the UK, there is something called asylum hotels. Now, I'm just reading popular headlines from some of the biggest media organizations. I'm angry. It's not right. Locals want these hotels shut. But are shared houses the solution? So there are some people who are saying that the government is paying money to hotels to house people coming to the country. Now, you guys know that there's been a lot of debates outside many of these hotels in Britain. Look at this. Here's one of the hotels in question, the Bell Hotel. So the government has not only paid people from other countries to come and live here and stay at these hotels. They've housed them. So again, that's taxpayer money. That's money coming from the local British people. The government has also used taxpayers' money to stop the democratic protests at the front of these hotels, where people say, hang on a minute, I don't want my money spent on this. I want to be able to afford a home in London, my home country. I think it's unfair. So we've established here that the government's, to Wolf's comment, is making some pretty contradictory statements here. Some would say treasonous. Treasonous indeed. So after the government created the problem, they waited for the reaction, and now they're proposing their pre-planned, pre-packaged solution. And that's absolutely true, Marcus. The US does it too. All of the Western governments are doing this right now. Who else is doing it? Oh, I've got a good headline for this. Let me find it. I've got a good one. It'll be worth the wait, I promise. Here we go. Sweden is paying foreigners $34,000 to go back to their home country. Just reading a headline. Let me show you the facts. Let's be really clear about what's happening here. I'm just going to read this. Again, this is 13th of September. This is 2 days ago. Sweden plans to boost payments to up to $34,000 to immigrants who leave the nation that has been a haven for war-weary and persecuted, the right-wing government said on Thursday. The Scandinavian country was for decades seen as a humanitarian superpower. So they've ran the exact same playbook. They opened up the country, they were welcoming, they were progressive. And all I will say is just look at some statistics of the crime that's happened in Sweden and the UK. It's out of control. It's out of control. I'm planning a Rumble special live stream on this topic. So I won't have to self-censor myself on that one. So I'm going to save my spicy thoughts on that topic until then. All I'm going to say is that, yes, there's a lot of problem in the world. There's fears, there's concerns, but I hope that this was a little bit more signal. The bureaucrats are coming. This was just a test in Thailand. This is going to be rolled out nationwide. Just you wait. This is only a matter of time before these temporary tests become permanent government measures. This is only a matter of time. Again, this narrative is not slowing down. It's accelerating. The desperation is real, to All Night Hider's comment in the chat. All Night Hider's on the runway. Have a safe flight, my friend. Before I break down the next part of today's video, I wanted to quickly read the comment section. It's good to see a ton of the regulars in here. Got a ton of you guys in the chat. Good to see you all. Even if you got a terrible haircut like Brandon, me boy. What I will say is that I think it's an overwhelming consensus in the chat that there is one solution for this. It is Bitcoin in self-custody. These guys are not going to slow down. They are coming. They are coming with the full force of totalitarianism behind them. They are coming. They're not going to slow down. It is absolutely happening. And again, I warned you guys in some live streams last week. I made it really clear in those live streams last week. Be very, very careful and be very, very cognizant of what tries to get rushed through while everybody is distracted with the obviously horrific events that happened last week in America. We have Nepal overthrowing its government right now. Protests all around the world. People are mad. People are not happy. I'm not even going to read this, but you can see September 13th, on a quiet Saturday night, a bill has been introduced into Congress that would allow Mario Rubio to revoke the passports of US citizens if they criticize a certain country. Boy, who saw that one? Who saw that coming? I don't want to pat myself on the back too much, but I said there's a whole lot of hysteria and let's call it amplification of events on social media platforms this week. And I encourage you guys, yes, stand up for freedom, voice your concerns and love for those who have suffered over the past week, but be very close, pay close attention to what's happening. The signal amongst the noise. I think we're now starting to see the signal with the Bank of England's new announcement that I think is absolutely insane. They're making it clear they're coming for your savings and they're about to execute, I believe, just a guess, what they lined out in their 48-page white paper titled Executing Bail-In, an operational guide from the Bank of England. And there is only one solution, and he's Austrian. Austrian economist. Absolutely true. It's funny, I had this tab pulled up that I was going to share in this video. We can't ever have a good money again before we take the thing out of the hands of government. That is, we can't take it violently out of their hands. All we can do is by some sly, roundabout way, introduce something they can't stop. Frederick Hayek. That quote comes from the 1970s. What is that sly roundabout way, you ask? It's Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin in self-custody. Again, there is no second best. It's Bitcoin. And it's learning how to use Bitcoin and using the tools associated with it. Again, it's great to put Bitcoin into a hardware wallet, into one of these. But I always encourage you, go that step further. Make sure you back up your Bitcoin 12 or 24 words onto titanium. I think the best place to get your hand on some of these titanium plates is Stampseed, and that's because they use titanium, what I believe should be known as the industry standard when it comes to Bitcoin backup storage. So many companies use stainless steel, and that's okay. It's not bad. But titanium is better. So go get some plates if you haven't got them already. You can use promo code Luke15 to get 15% off anything you want to buy from Stampseed. Go check them out. And just keep your head on a swivel out there. I think it's going to get interesting over the next 3 months or so here. I think things are only going to accelerate. I think we're only going to continue to see more and more rules and totalitarian movements like this, especially as the price of Bitcoin starts to rally. Let's check in on where we are. I want to quickly pull up the chart of Bitcoin, because it looks like this isn't a technical analysis channel, but I think we just had a nice little pullback, and I mean, who knows what's going to come next? I showed you guys this in a live stream the other day, though. Gold rallying so aggressively now. makes me think that Bitcoin's about to follow like it has every time in history. I think Bitcoin's going to follow pretty aggressively here in Q4. If Bitcoin just repeats what it's done in history, it's going to be at 200,000 by the end of the year. We all know that Bitcoin has massive October, Novembers, and Decembers, on average returning 22%, 44%, and 5%. If we just see that, we're at 200K. It's pretty bullish. It's obviously why I'm as bullish on Bitcoin. Again, please don't make the mistake of selling some Bitcoin at 200K just because a stupid chart has some lines on it and somebody says it's math and science. Bitcoin has to correct. I think there's a better way to spend some of your wealth that is in Bitcoin, and that is through borrowing against it. I think the best platform to do that on is Firefish. As you can see, I use Firefish myself. I have 2 loans on Firefish, and that's because they use multi-signature vaults and they connect you with a buyer. So again, they don't take custody of your Bitcoin. That's why I like Firefish. They're a marketplace. That's all they are. They over-collateralize their loans, which is why I think they're the safest way to borrow against your Bitcoin. They're even going to give you 30% off if you use promo code Luke on your first transaction or your first loan with Firefish. So I highly recommend you check them out. They are a great tool that keeps you outside the banking system. Again, so many people are thinking, okay, it's scary what the Bank of England's doing and saying, but there's no alternative. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. To answer Satwise's comment, what are the Firefish rates? Let's break it down. Let's have a look. So this is where the rates come from. You can see, I always tell you, if you don't know where your yield is coming from, you are the yield. This is where the rates are coming from. So if you want to invest, so this is what the fiat bros will do on Firefish. They'll come over here, they'll get a 50,000 euro loan, and they'll get a 12% interest rate. So they are on the other side of the transaction of those who are taking loans and borrowing against their Bitcoin. So you can see, this is how Firefish works. It's a marketplace. You borrow against your Bitcoin, or you can invest. So you park your stable coins on the platform and get paid a yield, 12%. So again, I love the product. There's a reason why I partner with Firefish. I think they're a great product. I use them myself. And I'm going to be using them a lot more in the future, as you're going to see in future videos, as I show you how I'm going to plan to buy a house this year and not sell any Bitcoin. I'm going to talk more about that in a future date. But if you do want to learn a little bit more about the Bank of England and Europe's recent push to attack your savings and confiscate your assets and implement a CBDC, I've done a ton of deep dives on that topic recently. I've been following these guys pretty closely lately. I'm going to put some links up on screen after this live stream is finished, somewhere around there, or link down below some recent videos I've done on that topic for you guys to bring yourself up to speed. And with all that said, hope you guys have a good day. I'll see you all in the next one.